in this video I'm going to show you how to use the circular pattern tool and the rectangular pattern tool. Both are very helpful if I wanted to do something complicated and then repeat it multiple times. Alright, so I'm going to go create sketch, choose my XZ platform plane rather. So that's going to be a top-down view. And then I'm going to, for this case, I want to try to make two things in one. So I'm going to use the mirror tool that we just learned about, and then I'm going to use the circular pattern tool. So I'm going to make a heart, and I want to make my heart on a rotating around a circle. So let's say that I want to make a circle from the origin, which is 60 millimeters in diameter, and I want to move this dimension out and away a little bit just so I can see a little bit better. And then I want to make a heart shape. So I'm going to show you another tool called the Spline Tool, Fit Point Spline. So there's two types. I'm going to use a Fit Point Spline, and I'm going to make a heart which starts just inside the circle and then stops outside. Okay, so this sort of shape. Now hearts are sometimes a little bit difficult to draw, but almost always hearts are symmetrical, so we can use the mirror tool to help us with that. So with the Fit Point Spline selected, I'm going to choose my first point, and then I'm going to choose a point where it's going to turn, another point where it's going to turn, and then I'm going to bring it in to the middle. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can get a little bit more of the curve I want. And I'm just experimenting here to see where I like it. So I like that there. And then when I'm okay with that first part of the curve, I'm going to hit this little check mark to say I'm done. And I've got there half of a heart. Remember that for the mirror tool we need a mirror line. We can actually in this case use the axis as a mirror line. So let's try that. Click on the line I want. My mirror line is going to be the axis. Okay, doesn't like it. So let's say, okay, let's go back, cancel that, and let's say mirror. Let's draw in another line, just for the mirror line, and go back to mirror. Choose my object, and select a line. You can use planes, I guess. Maybe you can't use the axis line. That's all right though. All right, so that looks good, and say okay. Great. Now if I was to try to draw this heart and be exactly the same all the way around, it could be quite tricky. So instead of trying to draw that every time, and notice that I can still adjust this, so maybe I'll get this a little bit shorter. I'm going to choose these dots that I just drew, and I'm going to just pull them down. So I'm holding shift and dragging some of those and grabbing those dots and just pulling them straight down. Oh, that's a cuter heart. Okay, so let's say that looks, I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to use this to try to get this heart again, this even harder now, all the way around, say 4 times. It would be tricky, very tricky to try to recreate it. I'd have to do a lot of measuring. Instead, I can use this tool right here, the circular pattern tool, and I can select the thing I want. So I'm just going to deselect first, make sure I get the right things, zoom in. I want this line, and hold shift, and this line only, so there should only be 2 things selected. And I'm going to choose a center point. That's where everything's going to rotate around because it's a circular pattern. So I'm going to select my circular pattern, or select my center point rather. Click here, and then choose the number of instances that I want. And I think I said I wanted 4. That's a little bit simple. Let's go 5. That's a bit more interesting. Okay, and say if that looks okay, you can say okay. Great. And there you go. That's circular pattern. So that's an object rotated around. And same thing as with the mirror tool. If I ever want to change the position of something that I've worked with, I can continue to still do that, and notice that it'll change it on the rotated objects as well. Okay, and you can undo, or I just did Command Z to undo. All right, great. So in this one, you learned how to use the mirror tool, or reviewed how to use the mirror tool, and then we used the circular pattern tool to rotate. One word of warning: when you're using the circular pattern tool, don't type in too high of a number, or it'll crash the system. Also, if you ever want to go back and edit, notice that it's added this little icon in the middle, and if I double click on that, it'll come up back into the circular pattern editing from before, and I can change that number. So instead of 5, maybe later I decided I want 6 of those. And say OK. Now I have 6. Easy peasy. Good work, guys.